Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen thinks my unborn baby belongs to her because she is a godly married woman. After that, am I the jerk for refusing to host Thanksgiving for 20 plus people for the 4th year in a row? And after that, my neighbor Margaret's revenge against her complete monster of a daughter. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen's furnace goes out. You're forgetting that we live in the same house, Redder boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen thinks my unborn baby belongs to her because she is a godly married woman. This evening, I was at a different church from the one I usually attend. I had work a longer shift than usual, so I couldn't make it to mine on time. I'm familiar with this group of believers as I went to their church's school and high school. I go in, find a seat, and settle in. After the service is over, I'm walking around, talking to people who I haven't seen in a while. They're extending congratulations and asking about my pregnancy, which, when done respectfully, is fine. However, it was not to last. Up walks Sister Karen. Oh my, Tannerland, when did you get married? I didn't get an invite. She wouldn't get an invite regardless. No, Sister Karen, I didn't find the one just yet. I had artificial insemination done to bring my little love to be. Cue a face longer than 2 horses combined. Wow, Tannerland, I didn't think you would be so stupid and not think about how selfish you are. There are so many folks that are both married and actually serve the church. You could have offered your womb to these godly folks so that they could raise the child in church and in a complete home. I was in so much shock, I could not form words. I and Brother Karen will be happy to raise that child. She's pointing at my pregnant stomach. In a complete home. We cannot have any more, so this is a great blessing to our family. I said, haha, you got any more jokes? This is my baby. If you come near me or my kid, or any of the kids that I have, you will be getting changed along an RO. Then I just went to continue talking to other people. On my way back to my car, she tried to pray over me to give my baby to her and her husband, the innocent and unfortunate baby in my womb. She is nuts. She's always been a nutter, but today, just the entire cake along with the plate it was sitting on. Some people. I understand some Redditors have a different opinion about church and faith than I do, which is your business. But please scroll on if you only want to say negative things about the believers. Thank you. Am I the jerk for refusing to host Thanksgiving for over 20 people for the 4th year in a row? So my fiance has a rather large family. Parents, 2 brothers with significant others, numerous adult nieces and nephews and their partners, and there's usually always some distant aunt, uncle, or cousins that tag along. I have 2 family members that join holidays. This year, neither will be able to attend. Last year, one was present. So for the past 4 years, I've been single-handedly cooking from scratch and hosting for both Thanksgiving and Christmas. So essentially, I've been cooking dinner for 20 people or so while my partner babysits a brisket in the smoker. There's a lot of logistics behind cooking for a large crowd. I start prepping the night before, cook all morning and afternoon, and by the time everything is done, I'm too exhausted to enjoy the food I cooked and eat. Last year, I requested that everyone attending bring 1 side dish or dessert. No one brought anything. I had a feeling that's what it was going to be, as no one mentioned what they're bringing, so I prepared for it anyway. Just to also mention, I've never been thanked for hosting or cooking, literally by no one. All leftovers get picked over and taken home. Last year, I also had to cook the following day because there was nothing left to eat, except some baked brie that my mother-in-law turned her nose up to, and I wanted to enjoy leftovers at least. This year, I told my partner that I have no intention of cooking. If he wanted to host, he can cater. His reaction was, "But that's our tradition. Can't you at least make some boxed stuffing or something?" And, "Everyone is planning on coming." My reaction was, "Nope, that's your tradition. I will not make boxed stuffing. And, if they're planning on coming, you better put that catering order in." He has not spoken to me since. I also had to explain, and I shouldn't have to, that I haven't been feeling well. I finished an 8-month course of a pretty rough medication that dries out all the joints in your body. I've been achy and miserable, and I feel stiff when I overwork myself. Am I the jerk for not wanting to entertain 20 plus people twice a year every year? I've decided to possibly sit out Thanksgiving completely. Buy a pre-made single-serving Thanksgiving dinner at the local grocery store that just needs to be popped in the oven for a while and going to watch that new Lady Gaga movie. Edit. Guys, my partner found this post and sent me the link. Now apparently we're canceling everything because I'm venting to strangers on the internet. I guess he didn't like what he read. Oops. Not the jerk. So his Thanksgiving tradition is, we pick one woman who's been brought into the family, we tell her that her partner is hosting Thanksgiving, then we load her with all of the responsibility for hosting and catering. We don't help or thank her. Her partner isn't allowed to do anything apart from barbecue duties. But what can you do? It's tradition. Yeah, forget that. If it's so important to your fiancé, he can host and cook. If he's that incapable, then he needs to stop volunteering. Go a step further. Rent a hotel room for a week or stay with a friend. Make sure that if he goes through with hosting, he's not only left with full responsibility for catering and hosting, he also has to clean up by himself. Edit. OP, I just saw your edit about your fiancé seeing this post. I encourage you to follow your plans regardless. Thanksgiving is going to be nasty if you don't. Please don't subject yourself to any more of that. P.S. OP's fiancé, you really suck so far at this whole being a fiancé thing. Improve, and fast. Do something nice and apologize instead of complaining that she felt so alone she had to talk to a bunch of strangers to realize that she wasn't the jerk. You did that. You did her over. Stop it. Not the jerk. I'm not understanding why they did not bring anything when you asked. He probably loves to feel like big man on campus and hosting. Calmly explain it's just too much for you alone. Then write up a list of what the meal consists of, hand it to him, and let him know that he needs to call everyone and assign a dish to them. I too was cooking for over 20 people several years in a row. I finally made a list of the meal I wanted, these 3 sides times 2, these 3 desserts times 2, appetizers times 2, and sent an email to the entire group. Here is a list for Thanksgiving. I made it easy for you all. I will be making the turkey, and that's it. Talk amongst yourselves, decide who is bringing what. If you don't bring it, we will not have it. Do not ignore the times 2, because with 20 people, 1 pan of any of the above will not be enough for all. I love you all, but again, I will not be providing anything more than the turkey as this year. I would like to enjoy the meal with you all versus serving everyone all day. My mother-in-law apologized for not realizing others were not chipping in. She always brought a ham and whipped everyone into shape, including the adult nephews and nieces. It's worked out wonderfully since then. Or if hubby is set on hosting, you were right to tell him to call for catering. Besides restaurants, several grocery stores offer full meal catering for the holidays, but he is probably pushing a deadline by now. Good luck. My neighbor Margaret's revenge against her complete monster of a daughter. This was an ongoing story about my friend and neighbor Margaret over the course of 5 years that's escalated this past May. Margaret is this sweet late 70s woman who lives on my street. My street is sparsely populated. Her house is roughly 800 meters from mine, and there's a total of 5 houses on my rural street, so lots of space. I met Margaret when I first built my house. She was the first and only person to come say hello. She brought us a lemon pie. When my husband passed, she was the first person to check on me, and she even made it to the hospital before my mom did. A really great person. After my husband passed, I would visit her a lot. After the first visit, I noticed she never really had any food in her fridge, and I assumed she was not doing well financially. I would go over once or twice a week with prepared meals, with the excuse that I cooked too much. It wasn't untrue, I always cooked too much, but I wanted to make sure she was eating. She's such a sweet woman. Well, during one of my visits, I had dropped off some food and a car pulled up and her daughter walked in. I excused myself and went home. I didn't want to be a third wheel. At this point, I had known Margaret since 2015. I didn't know she had any kids. Well, I went back over when I saw the car leave and I went to make us some tea and opened the fridge to grab some milk I dropped off with the meals. Everything was gone, including my plates. Her daughter had taken everything. Well, we got to talking, and I found out that her daughter had been handling her finances for several years, paying her bills and taking charge of all of her pension payments. So Margaret worked for General Electric for years and had her CPP. She let me go through her old payments, and she had no bills. Her house was paid off, and she was supposed to be getting a total of $4,500 a month in pension payments. There's no way that she should have been in any sort of financial hardships. Her power bill was only $80 a month. I went on to find out her daughter canceled her phone, internet, and TV and car insurance, so she couldn't even drive. Well, after a bit of talking, she accepted me calling a social worker friend of mine. Well, there was some obvious mistreatment going on here. Within 24 hours, we had her daughter locked out of her bank account, her pension checks direct deposited, everything, and I made up my mind to keep a close eye on her house in case her daughter came back. Not even a week later, I see that car roll up to Margaret's house, so I decide to go for a walk to check in on Margaret. Right at the top of her driveway, I can see into her front window, and what I saw made me take out my phone and call the police and start recording. That crazy jerk was attacking her. Before you judge me why I didn't rush in to stop it, well, I'm what you'd call super tiny. I'm only 4 foot 8 inches and 80 pounds. To be truthful, it's not hard to toss me around like a rag doll. For my safety, it was better for me to wait for the police. Well, her daughter was arrested, and Margaret ended up staying with me and my family from mid-May to the end of September. Now the whole story gets super long, so I'm going to do a quick rundown of what happened. Her daughter was arrested, and the RCMP got involved. Her daughter had been stealing money off Margaret for at least 5 years. Her daughter had taken over $250,000 from her bank and almost the entirety of her pension payments, over $50,000 a year. It gets better. Her daughter's son was involved with it, and after investigations, he was arrested and charged. Well, everything finished up in October. Both of them got over 2 years in prison and a no-contact order. Margaret was able to recover $200,000 and is getting her pension payments and is much happier. But that's not where the real revenge is. Margaret's house is worth over $2 million. Those two jerks are going to get out of prison with nothing. But Margaret met with an estate lawyer and she wanted to write me into her will. And I said, no, I have more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of time. Well, she wrote her will to give everything to a charity called Covenant House. It's a shelter for women. Oh yeah, she did leave her daughter and grandsons in the will. They both get a whopping 1 cent. Margaret sent a copy of it to her daughter and her daughter's kid in jail, attached to a Christmas card and a letter saying Merry Christmas. I took her to the post office today to mail it. So yeah, that's the story of Margaret's revenge. Those two jerks are sitting in jail, will come out to nothing, and will get absolutely nothing from their mother's estate. Honestly, Margaret is one of the sweetest women I have ever met. My mom moved to a place on my street, and they are like best friends. Am I the jerk for not calling out my son for treating my daughter badly? I have 2 kids, a son, Ben, who's 44, and a daughter, Emma, who's 42. Their father and I divorced when they were young. He wasn't a good husband, but he isn't a bad man. He is wealthy. He didn't bond with Emma, and he always favored Ben. It became overt as they grew up. Ben was easier than Emma and did well in school and sports. Emma, although smart, wasn't interested in school and was rebellious as a teenager. Their father spoiled Ben, and if I'm honest, he wasn't nice to Emma. This upset her, and she would cry, feeling unfairly treated. I felt bad, but I couldn't do anything about it, so felt it better to pretend it wasn't happening and hope it got better. It didn't. He wanted nothing to do with her, although there wasn't a reason why. Emma struggled to cope with this, and I think expected me to stand up for her. But I hate confrontation, and her father never listens to me anyway. I preferred not to discuss it with Emma and focus on other things, but she said I didn't allow her to be upset and didn't validate her. I didn't want to potentially cause a bigger rift and cause Ben to side with his father. Ben, on the other hand, was lavished with anything he wanted. Money, cars. He was expected to be successful like his father. As adults, the relationship between Ben and Emma fizzled out, which was sad, but I couldn't do anything about it. Despite being given a large amount of wealth and more opportunities than most, Ben hasn't become successful, and he is quite resentful about it. His father stopped giving him money a few years ago, and he partially blames me because I told his father that he had given him too much. Despite being an easy kid, Ben has grown up to be a rather difficult. He has a temper and is very sensitive about his lack of career success, so we aren't allowed to talk about it. Emma is a stay-at-home mom. She's a good mom, and her children's father earns a lot of money. Her father was regretful, so he reconnected with her. They have a relationship that's quite superficial, but I think it healed the wound a bit for Emma, so she reached out to Ben. They got along well for a couple of years, but Ben stopped speaking to Emma. Emma was upset and thinks it's because Ben doesn't like their father's interest in her. Ben hasn't given her an explanation, but he told me a silly reason that doesn't make sense. I told Emma I think Ben has behaved very badly. She asked me if I told him that. I said no, and she shouted at me that I've never stuck up for her or protected her, and if I can't do it this one time, she doesn't want a relationship with me. That I enable this behavior at her expense, and she's sick and tired of it. The thing is, Emma has 3 kids, and Ben has 1 kid. Emma will still allow me to have a good relationship with her kids, but Ben has made it difficult for me to see his kid in the past when he is angry, so I'm afraid he will do that again and stop speaking to me. I also don't want to be forced to be in the middle of them, so I won't do it. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk for being a total failure as a mother to your daughter. You allowed this behavior by not sticking up for her. So what if you hate confrontation? Does that give you a right to emotionally abandon her? You are terrible, and if I were her, I'd never speak to you again, since you just want to suck up to your son for the sake of being grandma. I hope Emma cuts you all out of her life. You've all failed her. You're the jerk. You make excuse after excuse for why you have never protected your daughter from her father, and now you're doing the same about her brother, letting her down all over again. What exactly does your daughter need to do to make you see that her feelings are worthwhile? That she needs someone on her side? You might also want to examine why you always defer to the men in your life at the expense of your daughter's self-esteem. You seem to judge men by how much money they earn, as if this gives them more worth. You even sound more approving of your daughter's well-paid husband than you do of her. Forced to be in the middle of them? For all of the years your daughter has been on Earth, you have chosen any side but hers. I reckon it's her turn for love and support. Whether you have the courage to give it to her at last is another matter. You've been an emotional coward so far. My heart goes out to that girl. It really does. Am I the jerk for potentially ruining my classmate's career? I, 20 female, am a college student. In my country, a lot of students hunt for internships because it helps them get a better pay package during placements. I've been casually talking with this guy, R, who's also my classmate. He was all friendly at the beginning, but started flirting recently. I never once flirted with him and always just ignored his moves, but last week he asked me out and I said no. In fact, I apologized to him to have him think that somewhere in our conversation I might have led him on. He ghosted me and I didn't think much of it. But 2 days later, he texted me again, asking me out. I told him that I already said no, to which he replied he gave me time to think it over and that I should be grateful for it. Not gonna lie, I got upset and told him to buzz off. And he got upset and called me all the names under the moon and just shamed me for it. I blocked him, but he made his friends start messing with me too. I got super frustrated and called him out on my story along with attaching the snapshot of our chats. Around 300 people saw, and one among them is placement mentor, 4th-year student. I didn't think much of it because after the story, I blocked them all and went ahead with my day. The placement head saw this kind of behavior as unacceptable and appalling, so he reported this to our department head. Apparently, in my college, this kind of behavior is labeled as harassment and punishment can lead to suspension. The department head and placement mentor called me to the DH's office to get my statement, and I did. I showed them everything. Well, he got suspended for 3 months for his behavior. He was about to get a very good internship in a government company, but since he got suspended, that internship is also gone. Our Professor P loves him, and he called me to his office to go and make another statement to DH saying that I forgive him, and there's also wrong on my part. Our DH called me, R, his parents, and 2 professors, P and Q. DH asked me if I'm willing to forgive him. This will get him off the suspension. Somewhere inside of me, I wanted to see him suffer, so I told him no. I was harassed and I want him punished. His mother berated me in front of everyone, saying that I'm the one who led him on, and I'm doing this purposefully because he's my competitor, and her son is the victim here. DH didn't listen to her and gave R his rightful punishment. Well, at least according to me. Well, now our internship started, and few of my friends said I took it too far. He just called me names while texting, and I got him suspended for that. Some of my other classmates called me a bully and a jerk for ruining his bright future, and Professor P called me outside the class today and told me that he's extremely disappointed in me, and it's because of people like me, potential careers are ruined. This actually made me cry, and I'm rethinking whether what I did was actually extreme. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Well done to your mentor in DH for stamping out this behavior. You should raise a complaint against Professor P, whose behavior is appalling. It wasn't you that affected R's career, it was R with his harassing behavior. But I can see you might not want to make this last any longer than it already has. OP. I do want to complain about this professor, but I'm honestly very scared now. I'm doing my internship, and I'm scared he might try to do something. He's one among the major professors in our department, and his subject is mandatory. Unfortunately, I don't have many friends to support me either. Am I the jerk for telling my sister she's adopted? I, male 22, have a sister, female 14, Cassie. Our parents adopted Cassie when I was 8 and she was 5 months old. They wanted to have a second kid, but Mom wasn't able to get pregnant again. Of course, at the beginning, I wasn't very fond of having a younger sibling. But as for now, I love her deeply, and despite our age difference, I've got good contact with her. Or at least I assume so. She's actually pretty funny to hang out with. We never really talked about her being adopted, and I never heard my parents talking about that with her. However, since she's 14 already, I assume they talked to her about the issue, especially since Cassie doesn't resemble neither me nor my parents. She has a tad similar hair color to Mom's, but that's it. To be honest, I never really thought about it. Anyway, a few weeks ago, my sister came to me and straightforward said, "I'm adopted, right?" I was dumbstruck, as I was sure she knew it already. However, I asked her, why does she think so? She explained to me that she was thinking about that for some time, mainly because of how she looks different than the rest of the family, and how she got almost sure after biology class when they talked about genetics, and she realized she has attached earlobes while the rest of us don't. As I said, she's a smart one. So I told her the truth. I also told her that it doesn't change anything and she'll always be my little sister, as well as our parents' daughter. And actually, she was like, "Duh, I don't doubt it. I just wanted to know if I'm right about the adoption." I wasn't sure if I did the right thing, but she's 14 already, and she was the one asking, so it didn't feel right to lie to her. Anyway, when our dad came back home, she simply told him she knows the truth. She also mentioned she knows from me, and asked why didn't they tell her. In my opinion, she didn't seem angry or sad, and asked rather out of curiosity. Dad was pretty cool about the whole ordeal, told her they wanted to tell her when she turns 18. In our country, that's when you reach adulthood. She seemingly accepted it, and that was it. Our mom, however, went fully hysterical upon learning that Cassie knows everything. She started crying, hyperventilating, and then shouting at me that I had no right to tell this to my sister, that I just had to ruin everything for her, and that I've no saying in the matter as I'm not Cassie's parents. We tried to explain to her I wasn't even the one bringing up the topic, but she didn't listen. Now our mom doesn't talk to me, as well as part of her side of the family. They say I'm the jerk for violating our parents' rights by telling Cassie the truth. By the way, from what I gathered, it seems like Mom didn't want to tell Cassie about the adoption at all, and telling her on her 18th birthday was Dad's idea. Am I the jerk for simply answering my sister's question about adoption? Not the jerk. You weren't required to maintain your parents' lie. The advice of professionals is a person should never remember learning they are adopted. They should be told before they are capable to understand and continue to be told in age-appropriate and loving ways as they get older. So it's just as much a part of the adoptee's story that they are adopted as it's part of your story that your mother birthed you. Your parents took the gamble of Cassie figuring out an openly kept secret before they were ready to tell her. That's on them. Managers aren't allowed to tell me to use their parking space when they're off? Alright then. So this happened a good 6 years ago now. I was just starting my IT career, so I was a basic level 1 desktop engineer for a large financial company. My team consisted of me, a level 2 engineer, and 3 managers, one for data, one for people, and one overall manager. Parking in town was either expensive or impossible, and while management and supervisors got parking spaces in the huge multi-story next to the office, other staff members didn't get one and either had to pay the very expensive parking fees or park far away and walk. Being on a low entry-level salary, I opted to walk the 30 minutes into town and often got sick due to bad weather. The level 2 guy lived a 5-minute walk from the office and didn't own a car. When any of the managers were off, they offered their parking space to me so that I wouldn't have to walk, which was very nice of them and greatly appreciated as it was saving me money too. One day, I got called into HR because somebody saw me coming out of the multi-story and got jealous and asked why I get a space and they don't. This HR manager was incredibly condescending and talked to me like I was a literal kid with lines like, "Back when I was your age, I thought the world owed me everything too," which is absolutely not my attitude, but sure, go off like you know me. She said it wasn't fair on the level 2 guy because he might want the space too. She wouldn't listen when I said he didn't drive and even said to me he didn't want it after I asked if he was okay with me using the space. At the end of the day, I went into the management office and we were chatting about the day as we usually did, and I told them about the HR meeting and said they weren't allowed to let me use their space anymore. The data manager then had a genius malicious compliance suggestion. She was a very selfless soul who sacrificed much of her time to help other people, and this situation rubbed her the wrong way, and she wanted to do something out of spite. She said that whenever one of them were on holiday, they'd just tell me that their parking space will be empty for the duration, not specifically that I can use it, which is what we were told not to do from HR. So the next time they were on holiday, I parked in their space, and after a few days, somebody else got jealous and tattled to HR again. I was dragged into a meeting and asked why I was still using their space. I said that I just took a chance on an empty space I found in the multi-story. They were rented, not pay and display. She went and asked the data manager when she was back in if she said I could use the space, to which she said, "No, I just said goodbye before I went on holiday for 2 weeks." HR then told her I was in her space in her absence and asked her if she wanted to raise a complaint against me. She said, "No thanks, I wasn't using it anyway." Their hands were tied and there was nothing they could do to prevent me from using the spaces as they're allocated privately to the individuals for use even outside of office hours and only reclaimed when they leave. Am I the jerk for training her kids like dogs when Karen dumps them on me? My cousin Amy, who's 25 female, has 2 6-year-old twins and has a nasty habit of dumping them onto relatives to babysit for the entire day without any warning or regard for their time. I, 27 female, have a very strained relationship with her, but because my mom's side of the family demands that we all remain close-knit, so I have no choice to tolerate her. When she initially gave birth to them, she teased me that I'll have to take on babysitting duty from now on. I'm no good with kids, so I remarked to her that if I ever have them, I'll train them, not babysit. She brushed me off. The kids now are very destructive and loud, pulling out stuffing inside furniture, holes inside walls, smashing anything glass and porcelain, screaming louder than a fire alarm, you name it. When it was my first turn to deal with them, I immediately walked them to the store and grabbed the biggest bag of M&Ms I could find and trained them so that every time they followed my orders and behaved, they get one. If they misbehave, I get one. Soon enough, every time the kids were dumped on me, they went with my guidelines and behaved. Whenever I say sit, they sit at the table. When I say stay, they don't leave that spot, etc. 2 days ago, there was a party planned with the whole extended family. I know everything going on. Didn't want to, but mom insisted. And I grabbed the M&Ms since the twins were there. Arrived, twins were being so destructive, an entire tray of food was spilled that all the adults had enough and yelled at Amy to control them. She threw out the same excuses of them just being kids and they'll grow out of it eventually. I shouted the twins' names and shook my M&M bag. They came running over to me and I popped 6 pieces into my mouth for their misbehavior. I told them to go clean up the mess or no candy all night. They do so. Halfway through the party, every time something similar came up or they just weren't behaving, I was the one able to calm them down. When Amy saw what I was doing, she got angry and started yelling at me about how our kids aren't animals and that I shouldn't be giving them so much candy anyway. I told her that I'm their aunt, not their parent. Why am I the one disciplining them? Isn't that her job? She screamed the same argument at me, and since she's their mother, to stop giving them candy. One of the twins overheard and went crazy, dashed straight into the kitchen and started shattering anything they could get their hands on, shouting over and over that he wants candy. His twin joined him soon after. I repeated that she's their mother and just sat in the living room watching it all unfold. In the end, Amy blamed me for them turning out this way. The other relatives she dumped them on, a majority, disagreed. But when I told a friend about the situation, he told me the training I did can really mess them up mentally later in life. So, am I the jerk? Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.